years ago, Union Pacific Railroad rolled out new safety procedures that would impact not only the folks who worked on the rail yards, but also the folks in corporate headquarters. Everybody in the corporation would have to follow the same rules. Rules like never walking while talking on your cell phone, never taking a step backwards, even in a training room. You see, they wanted to create a community of safety across the culture. But then they started to wonder, how do we get thousands of employees to comply with these potentially annoying rules? Well, the truth of the matter is, anytime we're talking to our employees about things like compliance, regulations, evaluation standards, benefits packages, we're typically talking to people out of what Granville Toogood calls the conscious mind. This is the part of us that processes data, information, bullet points, lists. And frankly, when we're conveying HR information to people, we have to talk to people in that way. But the problem is, the research shows that when we talk to people in their conscious mind, we don't motivate them, we don't inspire them, we don't move them to take action, especially when there's equally compelling data coming from more than one source. Like when a job applicant learns that the benefits at Panera are the very same as the benefits at Starbucks. So the question is, how do we give people the necessary HR information out of the conscious mind and yet motivate them to action? The answer is that we need to activate their primal mind. That's the most reptilian part of the brain that actually motivates us to take action. And how do we tap into the primal mind? By telling stories. Every so often, we need to set aside the data, the bullet points, the lists of information, the PowerPoint slides to tell stories. As a story consultant, my job is to help people understand what constitutes a story, and especially a compelling story. But the first question that people often ask me is, what kinds of stories do we need to tell? Well, they typically come in one of three categories. The first type of stories are origin stories. Every company has an origin story, which frankly often gets lost on new employees. And without those stories, the new employees have no way to really understand the values and motivations of the people who are already enculturated into the organization. But further, every rule, regulation, and procedure has an origin story. Now, we don't always need to tell it, obviously, but sometimes it's how we need to motivate people to comply. In the case of Union Pacific, they created a video in which the CEO of the organization spoke to the 44,000 employees by saying this. He told them, 10 years ago, we at Union Pacific had the best safety record in the industry. But then we got distracted by things like cell phones. We got careless, and we lost some family members. He then went on to tell them about the deaths of 4 UP employees. And he said that if we at Union Pacific are going to be a family, then every member of the family needs to abide by the same rules. The story had incredible power in changing the culture of the organization. The second type of story that we need to tell are success stories. Not only do we need to have a bank of client and product success stories, but we especially need a bank of employee stories. Stories about the 19-year-old whose new technology got implemented by the company, or about the woman who had triplets and became the CFO. These are the kinds of stories that we need to tell when we're onboarding new employees, when we're recruiting employees, when we're doing employee relations. But the third type of story that we need to tell are the unfinished stories. Sometimes we need to explain what's happening to people in the form of stories so they can see how their participation in the story could lead to a detrimental outcome, or how they could participate as the sort of heroes in the story to turn things around and make the organization better. You see, we in HR are trying to shape employees and to shape employee culture. Now, do we need to give our employees HR information out of their conscious mind? Of course we do. But the more we can tell compelling stories, the more we can motivate people to take action and thereby be able to shape the organizational culture in the way that we envision it. Because frankly, Stories are the human in human resources.